Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We are here for another one of your questions about work. And it seems that when we have the most sensitive topic sometimes is when I'm here solo. Today I'm here with Sydney, who's just joined our team as a fellow. And the question we have today, and so Sydney, I'm just going to pose it, give a view, and then would love to hear your thoughts, is I need to take medical leave. How do I tell my colleagues? So this actually came up with a good friend of mine who was um, uh, encountering the prospect of having to take a few months off of work, or at a minimum, one of the things that happens with medical issues, as folks who've been through them know, is that you end up in a situation um, where you're uncertain about whether you'll have to be out, where you have to go to doctor's appointments, sometimes unpredictably. You have very little flexibility over where those appointments can be. And so a frequent thing that can happen is folks don't talk about it. And then bit by bit, they start sort of disappearing for meetings, or they're gone for an afternoon, and folks start to raise an eyebrow, and it can be really uncomfortable. And so in an ideal world, you just be able to be totally open with everybody and say, like, hey, I'm going through all this stuff. But one, you may want your privacy. Two, it may sometimes be not your own medical issue, but that of a family member. And three, sometimes the nature of what you're going through might be unknown. And that's pretty hard to talk about too. And so my way of handling this is there's a minimum amount of disclosure that in good conscience you kind of have to do, which is to say, like, if it's your supervisor, your boss, and you're going to be gone a lot, then you kind of have to tell the person what's going on, and tell them as much as you feel comfortable telling them, and understand that the less you feel comfortable telling them, there may be a price to what you tell them. If you say, like, look, I have a medical issue and I'm going to need to be out once every few days for an afternoon, then the lack of full disclosure, I'm not speaking here to the law. I don't know
Right.
what the law requires here or not, but it just may make people feel uncomfortable that, like, okay, there's something significant going on and I don't quite know. Um, I'm assuming that your coworkers trust you, because I've definitely had situations where people say, like, oh, I've got some medical thing going on. And then they, are gone for a while, and they literally just lied, and it turns out that they were interviewing for another job. And so
Right.
let's take lying out of the equation. But the more you can be open and honest, and then radiate outward from there. Ideally, you have a friend or two at work who you can trust, who you can open up to and ask for advice. Maybe there's somebody in HR who you trust. Maybe you're able to be fully transparent. But the reason I say it's like an egg toss is that, that kids game where you toss the egg a little bit and hope it doesn't break, and then step back a little bit and hope it doesn't break, except that you don't want this one to break. So you just toss it when you feel confident and secure. Curious, Sydney, how that lands.
Absolutely. I mean, going into medical issues is always uncomfortable, and especially because of what you just said, which is you don't always know what the future might look like, right? So I think pinpointing that one person that you feel really comfortable with and just being explicitly clear with them throughout your entire process is so important to make sure that you're not giving the wrong impression to your team. If you actually are out dealing with a medical issue, you don't want your team assuming that it's something else. So honesty and transparency always.
Yeah, and then just being practical about it, that it's easy to preach and say, like, tell everybody everything, but in reality, you sometimes have to go gradually. So that's today's This Is Not Advice. And for those of you who are joining for the first time, the reason we call it This Is Not Advice is because neither Sydney nor I nor any of the guests that we have knows what you should do. We know our own perspectives, and all we can do is offer that experience and hope that it's useful to you. To be continued. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Sydney. Welcome
Bye.
on for the first time.